welcome back, gear nerds. Here is another review of a bit of gear. This is a Cat Cub IV 15 watt, so it's officially called a Cat IV 15R, and the R stands for Reverb. And as you probably all know, the Cat amps have a heritage that comes from Matchless, and the Matchless heritage is basically coming out of Vox. Okay, well, without further ado, I've already played you some sounds. Hey, first thing I've got to do is say, please hit like, please hit subscribe, tick the notification button, leave a comment, whatever it is, all interaction is great. So please, thank you for watching, and I really appreciate your engagement in the channel. Okay, let's go back to the amp. Where do we start? So first of all, it's a pretty big beast. This is a very, very heavy amp. They don't publish the weight on the website, but out of all of my amps, this is by far the heaviest. It really is heavy, and it's quite big. I've just put my measure on it. 23 inches wide, 19 inches tall, 23 inches wide, 19 inches tall, and 10 inches deep. It's a single channel amp with some options. I'll go through the options in a second. 12-inch speaker. It's a custom designed Cat 12-inch speaker, which has come out of coming from Celestion. I did some research to find out what this speaker actually was, and I'll put something up on the screen. I can't remember what it was now. It might have been a vintage 30. I can't remember. Anyway, so on the rear, let's cover the rear panel first. There's a switchable impedance for speakers and multiple speaker outputs, so you can run this with an extension cab quite easily along with the internal. It's got a foot switch for either kicking in the alternative preamp tube, we'll get to that in a second, and also the fat switch, which is the boost, and trying to remember all of the other things that are on the back here. Off and standby, and of course an effects loop, which is super handy on an amp that gets loads of drive from the preamp. Okay, what have we got on the front? So we've got a gain control. I'll demonstrate that in a second. We've got this switch, which a lot of people get very excited about. So this switch takes us from a 12AX7 to an EF86 preamp tube. EF86 is where in the original Voxes, my history's not that good, but I'm going to say a Vox AC10 originally had it. The EF86s are notorious for being microphonic, and so they quickly switched to 12AX7s. How Cat deal with that problem of microphonic preamp tubes is they say they hand select good ones from the batches that they receive. In fact, the best ones go in the combos because the combos are more prone to vibration. But clearly they've got the speaker in there as well, whereas the heads get the ones that are slightly not so good. Depth control. So depth control is quite interesting. So this is basically a high pass filter. So that is it. It's got, I think, 5 settings. But if I take it all the way to demonstrate the difference. So you get the difference there. In fact, I'll play a little loop quickly. So this is on the quietest. So basically, I think the reason it's there, this used, by the way, on the Cub III version, this was switchable, so you could either have the bass and treble controls, and, or you could have the tone switch. The reason they have this, in my opinion, is because when you put a lot of gain through, and you leave this in the high position, in other words, allowing lots of bass through, the thing gets very thick, woolly and muddy. Now you might like that kind of tone, but basically by allowing you to turn it down with the overdriven sound, you get a much tighter low end, which works a lot better. I'll try and demo that. We then have bass and treble. Now, just looking this up in the manual, these are not normal bass and treble controls in the fact that they're not passive, they are active. So there's a cut and a boost. And interestingly enough, once you use the treble control, when you start taking it beyond 12 o'clock, what you're getting is a more of a mid scoop. So this thing can basically sound quite blackfacey. So I think that's got a fairly prominent mid. If we push the treble over, so that it's quite blackfacey. I mean, it's different to a blackface. I don't know if you can hear that on recording. It's definitely got a little bit of a cut to it at the higher end, upper mids, which you don't normally get on the blackface. Blackface is normally a bit smoother. Actually. It out a bit, but then I've made it a bit muddy. Let's take a bit of bass out. So, I mean, obviously, it makes a lovely, lovely sound. So at the moment, I've got the gain about 9 o'clock, depth on full. You can see the bass and the treble's a little bit up. Reverb's on about 10 o'clock. The reverb, just quickly, goes quite big, so this is on 2 o'clock. If anything, I think that's too big. Let's just put it on maximum for a second. I'm not convinced that's completely usable. It, of course, is a fancy high-end 3-spring tank. It's long springs. In the range of normal use, it's perfectly fine, but I do find it a little bit ringy, a little bit splashy. But again, it just depends on your personal preference. So the bass, treble's been up there a little bit. Reverb 10 o'clock. This cut control is really neat. I quite like it. So this is it on maximum. And then minimum. So obviously rolling off the high end gets a very smooth sound. To learn those chords from Tomo Fujita and fail them. So if we come back, pop the cut control on 12 o'clock. A nice clean tone and plenty of tone shaping options to really fit in. So as we're working along, we may as well just talk about the KMaster now. So the KMaster, there's a lot of mystique about this, and I actually think some of what's talked about on the internet here is wrong. The KMaster is talked about as a great master volume that you can play at home levels. I hate to tell you this, but the big piece of news about this amp, it's really not a home playing amp, and it's just so loud. The volume that we're playing at the moment is way more than I would normally play at home. I'm only doing it because my neighbours are out. So this is a very, very loud amp, and presumably that's because the speaker's a high sensitivity speaker, because it's only 15 watts, of course. Now, so what is the KMaster really about? The KMaster is really about being able to get power tube breakup when you get to 2 o'clock on the dial. So if I turn the gain right down. So here we are at 2 o'clock. So that is basically as much power as the amp can put out. It's doing a 15 watts, but now if we go beyond that. And here we got into feedback. So now it didn't break up that much, but according to the manual, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. In terms of having a great master volume, it's okay, but it is not the big revelation that people seem to talk about. And I think they're just guessing. They haven't actually played one. And the problem really is like this. If I pop the gain on this up to 12 o'clock, and then I kick in the EF86, which raises the gain just a little bit. Come back to the EF86. This is already way too loud for home use, and you can see the master volume is almost on 0. So, yeah, I'm just touching it to alter the volume now. So I've just about made it. Yes, I suppose that's a home volume, but any master volume can do that. The problem is if I adjust something, I can't really. Now that's okay. It's above the volume of my strings. But I'd need to keep fiddling with the master volume if I wanted to do that. So the master volume, it's okay. It is a master volume. I think I described it a little bit like the master volume on a Hot Rod Deluxe, whereas where it's on sort of 1.5, it's just about okay. And then if you nudge it up to 2, it's really way too loud. And so that's the problem. So I did consider getting one of those effects loops volume controls to try and control it a bit more, but what I actually did was bought an attenuator. And with an attenuator, the amp really comes into its own. Because okay, so I just apologies for the seamless cut there, but I ran out of batteries in my camera. So okay, let's just go back to going through the EF86 switch. So the EF86, if I now kick it in, you can't hear much difference. In the room, it's a tiny bit louder, but probably not much different. But if you pop the gain up, and then kick in the 86. So it just pushes it over the edge, and so you could go. You could pretty much get away with that as your clean tone. Gain is on 12 o'clock. There's a little bit of break up to it though, I have to say. Then kicking the EF86. bridge pickup rhythm crunch. Then we come over to the fat switch, or they call it a boost on the back, so referred to as boost. Presumably this is a tone stack lift of some kind, although actually I'm not sure because it says it's got an active EQ. Anyway, it's a way of adding a little bit more gain as things go through. Now this is much more noticeable than the EF86 switch. So if we go back to our sort of semi-clean, switch in the fat switch. Now this is where you really notice that you need this depth control, because to me it's very woolly. Treble, which scoops it a bit, it's not really giving you what you want. It goes a bit brash. So if you take the depth control right down, tightens it up so much. It really does give it. So you could still sort of say that this could be played clean. As well. Would help if I hit the right note. With the 2 foot switches, and if you're on a gain of 12, you can pretty much cover your 3 sounds, although they're pretty similar. So again, clean rhythm, a little bit more, boost, a little bit more. Now that actually, just playing that just reminds me of something I need to say about the tone of this amp. So this amp strikes me as an excellent amp for a player who's in a band, because that sound isn't super high gain, but it's really cutting and piercing. For a home player like me, it's just too much. And that's my point about the master volume, so I kind of need to tweak the master volume just a little bit. Sensitive. Really touch sensitive. That's something that's very noticeable out of this amp. So you could get your 3 sounds. I think I've talked about the reverb and the cut control. I think the cut control is so it is definitely very noticeable, and this may sound a bit strange, but I'm a fan of blackface amps, and this does blackface really nice, so I'm not going to go all the way back to doing the clean that we did at the beginning, but it does a really nice approximation of a blackface, a really nice scooped American sounding thing. Of course it does sound like a Vox. I'm no Vox expert, but I can hear that nasally reedy thing and that little cut at the high end happening. and it's really, really enjoyable. The other thing is, of course, with the effects loop, I've been putting some delays and so on and reverbs through, and this handles them all easily. Let's just pause there for a second, and I'm going to run the Les Paul through it just to give you some idea of what it does with some humbuckers. Okay. Okay, so actually there's too much reverb on there. So there's God, the reverb's so big. Okay, so that's a little bit. So now, all of this gain is, the gain controlled is only at 12 o'clock, halfway round. I've not kicked in the EF86 and I've not kicked in the boost. So there's a lot to be had here. So, EF86, so remember. EF86. For some reason I can't remember that. Okay, so that's the EF86. The fat switch is just going to take it right over the top. So on. Wow, so that's a really... Let's go to big bridge pickup. By the way, this is really loud. Obviously I can't really play that stuff. So this is again, so just to go back, so this, with the Strat we kind of got a clean tone. But we don't really get a clean tone with Les Paul on this setting. But maybe if I just sort of roll the volume back a bit. I would say say, not really a clean tone. Then EF86. And then the boost. It's really gainy, and we're only on 12 o'clock. So if I put it round to 3 o'clock. That's just wild, out of control. So by the way, we talked earlier about this bass, what's it called, depth. If we put that on, it'll just get terribly muddy. Of course, that may be the sound you're going for. Bridge pickup though. Say this is in the territory at least of plexi. I think it's probably about plexi territory. Obviously there's two EL84s in the back here, so it's not exactly martial. Like I say, this thing's based on a Vox. It's pretty quiet. I've got a little bit of a buzz and hum coming through right now on this maximum gain. So let's go. Should we go all the way to maximum gain? That's it, absolute everything on max. Yes. Wow, it's so loud, but the sustain goes on. Obviously, I can't play that bit. But anyway. Okay, my goodness, let's dial it back. So you don't want to hear me enjoying myself with the everything on 11. Right, so we've come to the end. We've come to the end of our journey, fellow travellers. And this amp, well, obviously, so first of all, Bad Cat, who are they? They're a boutique maker. This one is hand-wired. Actually, I should have done that at the beginning, but just to, if you're still with us, I'll show you some gut shots now. It's a very strange kind of hand-wired because it's a mixture of point-to-point, PCB and turret board, which is slightly odd. I took it apart because, by the way, there was a burning smell when I first got this. And I looked inside to see if there was some piece of plastic or something stuck on the wrong thing. And it turned out that it was some stickers that they'd put onto the EL84 power tubes. And it was giving me a burning smell the whole time. How ridiculous is that? How can they send them out with stickers on when this is obviously going to give me a burning smell? Anyway, so what do I think about it? It's big. This is pretty big for a 12-inch combo. I think it's about as big as a 12-inch combo comes because after this you're into 2x12 territory. Of course it's smaller than an AC30, right? The other thing is it's really, really heavy. Then the next thing is it's very, very loud, and the tone you get from it is extremely cutting and punchy. So all of this is pointing to this is the kind of amp for a band setting. By the way, it's an absolute joke. This is 15 watts. If you want to find out if this will stand up next to a drummer, it will obliterate any drummer at 15 watts. Goodness knows what the 30 watt or the 40 watt will do. Also, you may be here thinking about what's the difference between this and the regular American, I think it's called American Player series. And basically that one, first off, is all PCBs. You know, you could say so what? It's not going to sound any different. And the depth control is missing. And I think there might be one other small feature missing, but I can't really remember. But the depth control is probably the most important. I think the depth control is an important control here because without it, your high gain sounds are going to be a little bit woolly. But you could probably deal with that, you know, by either with using your bridge pickup or even with an EQ pedal if you wanted to have an EQ pedal just to cut a little bit of that bass. The reverb, oh dear, what else do I think of this? So this thing is just about twice the price of the standard player series, and I mean this is just my opinion, it's nothing to do with playing the amp. This is my opinion, is that I don't think the difference really justifies it unless you're a real hand-wired purist. I mean, what is the benefit of hand-wired? Of course you can change components, it's easier to maintain because you can change an individual component more easily. And of course you get that feeling of something that's hand-built in a traditional way. So what's my verdict? If you want a hot-rodded Vox, and by the way, I played a few AC30s when I was looking around for this amp, and this beats them. It beats them in terms of versatility by a mile. And the sound is it's voxy, but it's its own thing, and you can definitely, as you just heard with the Les Paul, get into that full-on Marshall territory. Do I wish it was 2 channels maybe, so that you could switch between the two? I think if I was gigging, yes, that would bother me because it's probably not enough variation just by being able to switch between the EF86 and the boost switch. So you're either going to be tending to always be using a dirty sound or tending towards a more clean to edge of breaker. Effects loop works fine. Reverb's probably a little bit over the top. So there you have it. If you've made it this far, frankly, you've made it through a marathon and you must be really keen on this amp. So I always think you've either just bought it and you want to see what somebody else thinks about it, or you're really gassing and you want to buy one. And I definitely think this would be in my top 3 Vox amps. I don't even know what the other 2 would be. Of course, you're going to have to try a matchless. I've heard from people who've owned matchlesses that they are all super loud and really not suitable for home use. This is borderline. The whole demo I've done today, I've done without the attenuator because I wanted to keep the tone clean. And it would have been hard work if I tried to keep the volume down to home levels. I've played this way over. In fact, my ears are ringing a little bit because the volume has been so loud. And you can see the master volume, the KMaster, has been pretty much on 1 or 2. There are no numbers on the dial, but it's been extremely, just cracked open a little bit. So there is a lot of volume in here. That sounds like that's the major feedback from this thing. Okay, as always, please hit like, yes, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the little bell to be notified, and leave a comment. Very interested in your comments, see what you think, and how it might compare to another amp. Do you own one? What do you think of it? How's it worked out for you? Love to hear about that in the comments. Thanks a lot, see you next time.